Got here. Hello and welcome to the Dance of the Soul on this wonderful day where we can celebrate something instead of death and destruction, which is actually a part of the background of why we're celebrating freedom. And it's Juneteenth. I'm saying that wrong, I know, but it really hit me this last couple days about why are we having this day. And I know that a lot of different genres of people and or backgrounds of people have been celebrating this kind of day for a long time, and celebrating, and it's basically celebration from slavery. And on the Dance of the Soul, we're going to give perspectives that, people might not always agree with, yet at the same time, it's something that Regan and I, he's a hypnotherapist, has done sessions with people who have gone back and seen what their soul path has been and why are they in this lifetime. And for me, working with my mediumship and my intuition, I work with past lives, and so I've witnessed a lot of past lives where we've been in wars, we've been in slavery, we've been in, and it hasn't just been in this country; it's been on other planets. And so, with that as we've walked and as we're going to talk a little bit about this journey of slavery, wars, and who's right, who's wrong in a way that hopefully we can do some healing on it, because that's what Regan and I's greatest wish is, for healing of the individual soul, healing for the individual person, healing for the greater picture of our world or worlds, because on the next journey of our soul we may be on another planet. So, with that, welcome, Regan, to this Monday.
Yeah,
I'm grateful that you're here in this partnership that we have together on this destiny or journey of the soul. So, how are you today?
I'm just great. I had a 3-hour session today, a follow-up session from a session I did a year ago, and some things that happened in this person's life, and she wanted to get more clarity on some things, and it was really nice. She's a really beautiful soul. She may even be listening now. I gave her the information. Asked her if she wanted to be on. She says, "I'll have to think about that," because everything we do is public, and of course, a
Hmm.
lot of us are pretty private, and she's a pretty private person.
And we can honor that, because I
Yeah,
know I
and
have prides in my life that I don't share about
right,
because they're
indeed.
private, and we all have them, and
Yeah,
that's a thing.
it is interesting how some people are just an open book and other people are completely the other way, and then there's all this scale in between, and none of it's better than the other. It's just what people are comfortable with,
Hmm.
out there. But it's good today. I wouldn't until the last few days. I think last year I heard a little something about Juneteenth, or they made a movie about it or something, but I never watched it. So explain to me more. I have a gist about what it's about, but how do you see it? Is why we're celebrating today. Like, how did they come with Juneteenth? Like, that had to be.
This is the day that I guess in my I mean, I have an understanding, and I've done a little bit of research, but I'm not in the culture, being the color of my skin, that I haven't been immersed in it, and it's not in my DNA in this lifetime's body. And Chad, I'll get to you in just a minute. We had somebody who messaged
Oh, great.
that it is about the date of freedom. It's the date that Congress and all that, and it's that point of where slavery had ended in this country,
Mhm.
according to government.
Yeah.
And not everybody adhered to that in this
Yeah. I
moment.
mean, well, no.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So with that as we're going forward and managing our life, that we're not all in the better picture of what really happened, because
Yeah.
for me, I understand history in the way that, of course, in my mind, I did the aspects of what I learned in school and that kind of thing. And then I have other truths because I see into people's souls. And it's not necessarily without permission. I don't see into the dilly daddles of the little things of it, but yet, because I respect everybody's privacy, but there is that overview that I can get on somebody as I'm walking by them. And it's been an interesting balance of like when the riots were going on, I really saw a lot of people of different skin color in this lifetime.
That was it was good. Yeah.
And I saw them being the ones that were beaten in a previous life going, "I have a voice now, and
Wow.
I'm speaking it, and this is against the rules. It's against humankind." And it was like finally their soul had a voice. And I even saw people of slavery that were back in the Egyptian times.
Right.
And I saw slavery when they were back in a lot of different cultures of different times. Even the tribes that would go across the deserts would collect people and be slavery. And so we've had slavery from even on other planets of taking over.
Yeah.
And uh and so with there's that part of the balance of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's an interesting place to be,
Well, yeah, I
because
know. And being a history buff too. I mean, um, slavery's been around like forever. You read back in the Bible, and the Jewish people were slaves, for a while in Egypt and that. And it didn't have to do so much about skin color. It just happened to be they were the race or the people that were, someone thought was a good, race
we're
to
gonna
enslave.
mhm. We're gonna take you over, so then we're gonna make you slaves.
Yeah. So, phew, I guess slavery takes, there's the obvious slavery like we had with the Africans, when we brought them over, and obvious, and when the Egyptians get the Jews and so forth. But slavery takes many forms. In a way, you could even say that women in this country have been slightly in the edge of slavery for a lot of years because of the control of men over women, where women didn't even have the right to vote, and until this century, last century.
Mhm.
Um, they didn't, they were considered property. Um, and matter of fact, it reminds me of where the rule of thumb comes by. But it says, well, it's the rule of thumb. And I did some research on that, and the rule of thumb was uh, back in the early 19th century. Uh, uh, you weren't allowed to like kill your wife or something like that, but they said that you could beat her with a switch that was about the size of a thumb, you
Mhm.
know, and that boom, because they were like your property. And so, well, if it's any bigger than that, you might get in trouble, but you can beat her with a stick that's that thick, switch. So slavery makes different forms, but the good thing is that we're starting to evolve enough. That's the part that makes me feel good. We're starting to begin to evolve to see that it's never right to enslave anybody. That
Mhm.
we're all here, we're all equals in that, and it's hard to break out of old things. And I'm surprised how many people are still fighting that. You know, uh, you know, and it all comes from somehow in the mind. When you think another person is beneath you, is lower intelligence, or it doesn't live the way that you do, and you feel superior, then in your mind you feel that you can enslave them. You know,
Mhm.
you don't feel bad in doing it. It's hard for someone to enslave someone that they look at as an equal.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing, and I'm grateful that in this country that even though we're not walking as quickly as I wish,
yeah,
that at least we're walking.
yeah. And that's the good thing. And see, some people think, like with the slavery in this country, they think, oh, back when Juneteenth came, okay, it's all done. They're free now. They're just like us and everything. And you could see that it just wasn't like that. And to some degree, it's lessened. I think I feel it's lessened some, but not to the degree that we all need to,
Hmm.
need to do it. So people are still feeling that, So the good news about what we do, because like when I have people in deep trance and they go to the other side, go to heaven and back, they see that we're all the same. We may be different colored energies, but we're
Hmm.
all equal. There's no hierarchy over there. In other words, everybody is just part of the whole, a part of part of the energy of God. And so,
Hmm.
we don't have that, oh, I'm better than you, and that on the other side. And when they experience that, when they go there and they feel the love, the unconditional love that they feel in heaven and on the other side, it's life changing for people. They start looking at everybody as soul rather than as, oh, you're this age, or you're this color, or you're
Hmm.
this part of this side of the tracks or that side of the tracks. You know, so that's a big thing people can learn by taking a trip to the other side and by the advice that you give them and stuff.
Yes, because I know that when I look at someone that, I look at everybody with love, and people get thrown off by that because the fact that we all have our story, we all have our journeys going through, but the soul that we all have as our vitality, the soul that carries our Akashic records, basically. It's our book of who we've been over lifetimes. It is just light. It
Yeah,
is love. It is that abundance. It's that coming down on this earth to learn some experiences. I'm tired of lessons. Learn some experiences so that we can get that book that our soul carries a little bit fuller of knowledge, because of the fact that when we're physical we can learn things. And that's the sad thing is that you know seeing the bigger picture, that it's hard to word this in a way that doesn't sound like it's okay, and I'm going to make that clear that this is not
yeah.
okay.
I have a hard time saying those things too sometimes.
Yeah,
You feel that you're
that our
excused.
soul has, yeah, our soul had something to learn.
Yeah,
And sometimes that learning comes from going through something traumatic, like being a slave.
yeah,
And then another lifetime, if we die young, we can come back as a plantation owner in another lifetime to
hmm,
get an opposite point of view. And that can all happen within a short time.
hmm,
It depends on what the soul is journey and the timeline is.
yeah,
And so with that our soul is about stretching and pulling on these different aspects.
yeah. There was a man I read about who worked at a Fortune 500 company, and they had a new a new person that came into work, and he'd never met this person, of course, before. The person comes into work, and the moment he saw them, he felt a deep hatred for the man, and he
Mhm.
couldn't understand why. And he was a good man in in this life. He's a good man in that, but he couldn't help it that every day when he would see this man, he would feel hatred. And
Mhm.
so he did a spiritual exercise. There's many that people can do to kind of, get to the other side or get a bigger perspective or something.
Mhm.
And in there, he had a vision of this man. It was something like the pyramids or some big construction thing that he was doing, and he was a slave.
Mhm.
And there was a man in that other lifetime who he recognized as this man in this lifetime, beat him and threw him in a hole and buried him alive. Okay.
Mhm.
So being that he was familiar with the work that we do and everything, he got this bigger perspective. He went, oh, wow. You know, and he said that made a whole difference. He said the next time he saw the guy, he didn't have that feeling that he understood, but he still was a little bit hanging on. Then we got rid of a lot, but still a little hanging on. So he did another spiritual exercise. He had a vision, and he saw himself killing that man in another lifetime. He was the slaver, and the other man was the
Mhm.
slave, and he had killed. So being that he had progressed spiritually, he realized that now it was time to stop you
The
know,
cycle.
the cycle. Yeah. And
Hmm.
he had the power now because he was advanced enough to stop, the buck stops here. And it's actually
Yes.
not going to go further. So that was a big experience for him and realizing, and it empowered him to see that he had this power to stop the cycle of I'll kill you, you kill me, not learning the lesson that needed to be done.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in this lifetime, we may not necessarily kill each other like we have in past lives. That availability isn't there. We hope. But we would maybe, sabotage the relationship, always be fighting them, if we were their boss, we would belittle them or not engaged with them as we wish we could. And that's the thing about, going through lifetimes, that we do collect, and we do. It's kind of like me on the I took one cruise, on a cruise one time. And it was interesting how, out of all the thousands of people over that 4 or 5 days that we were on the cruise, we would still collect to the same-ish people. We
Yeah.
would still go to the same people we would end up in the same area of the boat unconsciously.
Yeah.
We would end up at dinner at the same time unconsciously, and those kinds of things. Well, our soul does the same thing. Our souls do the same thing, even though we may not be in the same soul family, but we collect being around the same souls a lot of times. And as we're going forward, that it's interesting how we do learn our lessons from each other going through that process.
Yeah, we do. Well, too, what's interesting now, just to give you a little background for people watching, I work with the Newton Institute, and we've helped over.
I'm gonna, while you're doing that, I'm gonna go shut my door and open up a door
Okay.
for a fly that's flying around driving me crazy because
Okay.
he's telling me he wants out.
Yeah,
Hold on a
let me
second.
out.
You can
Keep
tell
it.
him about you.
Okay. So here's now I'm trying to remember the story. Oh, yes. I work with the Newton Institute, one of 250 therapists around the world. We're in 46 countries. And for about 50 years, we've been doing research on what happens to people when they die, at the moment of death. What happens? Where do they go after their body dies, and what do they do in this place that they go before they come back again? I guess people call it heaven, the afterlife. And we record it all, and we found out everybody can do this. I say everybody because we have about a 90% success rate in 1 or 2 sessions where a person's able to relax enough to allow this magic to happen, where they seem to have a switch and they can access the deep memories of past lives and actually memories of being in heaven and what they do when they're there. And then they can actually, because there's no time and space over there, you can go from the past to the current, and they can actually experience being in heaven. And it's life-changing experience for a lot of people. Well, there was a client that I had that was coming out of the closet. He was and I did this outside in a nice place right on the ocean in San Diego. And he was a college student, and he'd experienced a lot of prejudice because he was gay. Since just recently, since he had just come out, and he felt this freedom that he had come out where he could start being himself, but it wasn't easy because of the
Mm-mm.
way his parents would teach him and everything like this. So, in this deep state of trance, when he went to the other side, he got to see. He went to this place we've discovered over there, which is the life selection area of heaven or whatever, where you're actually in a place where you look at possible future lives for your next life. You decide on the body, what kind of, what color skin you're going to have, whether you're going
Mhm.
to be gay or straight, all of that. And he saw himself choose to be gay because he needed to come down and learn to counterbalance, or to be able to have prejudice against him, and for him to learn to send love back.
Mm.
Rather than that, it was going to be a big lesson for him. And him just learning that for his, now it could be different for all cases, but I'm just saying this is one possibility, that we've decided that sometimes people choose lives of difficulty, not just being gay, but to be down in a crippled body, or to be in a situation where you're going to have a very difficult life for one reason or the other. It was to learn something. So it helped him a lot, he said, because now he said it almost took some of the sting out of it. Like,
Exactly. It's like, why am I the way I am? Well, I
yeah,
guess I chose the way
yeah.
I am.
And a lot of my clients, they've experienced just in general, they find themselves in other lifetimes that they were gay. Okay.
Hmm.
But the thing is when you leave these physical bodies and you're back in the soul soup with everybody and all the energies and everything, there's no such thing as gay or straight, or you're actually male, female, and androgynous. You're everything over there.
Exactly.
So
Now I understand that some souls are more masculine and there's some
yeah,
souls that are more feminine. Because I know that for me, my soul is more feminine than masculine, even though I've spent lifetimes in in uh, in the male body. So I have a couple messages here. So
okay.
Chad, sorry, God, this fly is like trying to tell me
Hey,
stuff.
Chad.
So Chad, could a medium message me? Uh,
What does
that's
that
ki
mean exactly?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So if you can kinda give a little bit more clarity to that, I would love to,
Yeah, to
because of
back,
the
if you
fact.
have a specific question for her, like what you'd want her to try to see, then that'll
Yes.
it isn't it sometimes like with a medium, you just have to get to hook into and to get that insight, you have to get a little bit of information, like a name, or maybe an issue that he's dealing with, or a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like if someone said, come over to my house, but they don't give you an address. How do you know?
Exactly, exactly. That's that, and that saddens me because of the fact that I know I get messages. I can give somebody probably a half an hour session
Yeah.
on what the universe wants to tell them and who was their guides and all that kind of stuff. But if you want something specific, it's hard for me to really dial in unless it's really screaming and yelling at me,
Yeah.
to dial into the AM radio station and the FM radio station at the same time to pick
Yeah.
out every little detail that I'm supposed to say.
Yeah. So Chad,
So,
type up something. Chad, wasn't it?
yes.
Okay, Chad, yeah, type up something there and let's see if Natasha can help you a little bit.
Okay, and then we have a couple messages from Mike, and thank you, Mike, for mentioning this. So, if you would like to read, Regan, please.
Oh, it says, reading it. I watched the resentencing of a scumbag in Florida of a guy called Alan Wade, whose death penalty was commuted to life without parole. He robbed, kidnapped, and murdered an elderly couple by burying them alive. What do you what do you think what do you think killed the fly?
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Okay, here's another one here.
Okay, and Mike says, "Hey, love you guys. I had a PEA cardiac arrest in the cath lab at Manchester Royal Infirmary in 2019. I was down for 30 minutes, but don't remember anything." So in
Mm-hmm.
other words, he died for his PEA. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what term is that means.
Yes, yes,
He
yes.
was
And you
dead.
did mention after our last show, Mike, and I tried to reply, but it was hard to reply to everything that you wrote in. Right after our show, it was one of those busy days for me, so I apologize.
Mhm.
And so he says, "Sorry, Manchester, England." Yes, um, and I forgot you have one. So with that yes, we don't always remember. Sometimes our soul, when we have ordeals like that, especially like I know for a lot of people who've gone through the slavery and stuff, they wonder, or car accidents or a major trauma, that a lot of times our soul is not attached to our body when things happen. And so for Mike, I'm not necessarily tapping into the every detail because you haven't given me permission, but I can see the overview is that you were not meant to remember a lot of those types of things because of the fact that it would have been at that time too much of a shock for you. And it wouldn't, some people need the shock value to wake up, and it's a good thing for them. Right now, the slow journey of you awakening is part of your journey. It's not necessarily that you needed to jump from 1 to 10 all of a sudden in remembering, but you having those moments, because even you having that that you were down, you already went through a lot of shock value, just understanding that you went down. And that part of that integration and healing process of the body, healing process of your mind, healing process of your soul was part of your evolution at that time to wake up. Now you are starting to get information from other places to fill in that void that some people in those life altering experiences of a near death experience do wake up and learn. And it wasn't, everybody has an individual journey with that.
Yeah, it is
It's
very,
not a one straight road. So if
yeah,
your soul was meant to learn just, let's get over this shock value of what you just, I almost died, what,
yeah.
that's pretty big. It's huge.
Well, it
So
is, and people that I've talked to before, some of them, like they figure, okay, I'm going to go in for this operation. They're going to put me way under, and I'm going to, because you hear people that go, oh, I saw them. I was on the ceiling and looking down and seeing the operation and hearing what they were saying and everything. And I think for my experience, because that's happened to me a few times with some operations, some of my friends, and none of them have remembered anything. They've just been out. But a lot of that is physiological, I think, because of the anesthesia that you're given and what it does to the physical brain, kind of shuts everything down, that way. So even though you probably had experience, your soul was out, something, that memory is somewhere. I think it would be interesting sometime to, like if I had somebody like Mike and I was doing a
mhm.
life between life session, we put him in deep hypnosis to have him go back to that time of the operation and say, okay, now they're operating on you. Where did you go? And that memory is probably there somewhere, just to see what
Mhm.
he was doing, that way. But that's what Mike in this life between life process, you get to this, we replicate you going to sleep, and I take you back to just on the verge before you fall asleep,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
keep you there by communicating with you. And that's where most people are able to actually leave their body and it's like having a near death experience without the death part, you know. And you do it, and you can actually stay on the other side for a couple hours and have a blast. What else
Yes,
did you say
and
with
we
me?
were okay, so I'll catch you up because you were talking. So it was an elective surgery, and you're correct. It was a shock when the consultant woke me up, and it was yeah, yeah, exactly. And then you said you're of Asian
It,
ascendant, and then it wasn't an accident. Yes, no, it doesn't always have to be an accident. It doesn't. Sometimes it is moments where, like the synchronicity of life, the synchronicity of this happening at the same time that happens, at the same time that you're meant to learn this experience and understand the greater picture. All of a sudden, that wham bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of comes forward, and it's amazing in the journey of how we walk through life when that happens. And that's the thing that, going through back to this June 13th or Juneteenth scenario of why did we have slavery? Well, because, it wasn't an accident. There was things that we needed to learn through that process. And sadly, it's taken us a long time to learn those experiences, and, it's it's a very sad place in the history of life. I can tell you though that I know for me that I was a slave owner in on another planet even. And then I have another time that I was a slave on another planet, and there's one point in this planet back when I was in the very early Celtic times
Mhm.
of this country, or of the England and that area country, Ireland and Holland and all that area. So
Well,
with that we're all go through these learning experiences to do that. And I'm grateful that you made it back. I'm very
yeah.
grateful that you made it back.
Well, there's a book. Maybe he's read it. Or, I'm sorry. Is it Mike? Get what
Yes.
I'm talking to? Mike, there's a good book out there called, I want to say, Saved by the Light by Daniel Brinkley. And he was just a regular guy. He said not very spiritual, not very religious. And during a storm, he picked up a phone and a lightning hit and went through the phone thing there. And he was on the other side for a couple hours. And then he wrote a book when he came back about it, and he changed his life. He actually now he's actually died another time since then, and I think a third time, and they still told him, no, you got to come back, you got more work to do. But he has like 30 something, and every time he's over there he goes, no man, if I don't want to go back, you know, it's too good over here. He started over 30 hospice centers, and he goes around the country visiting people that are about ready to die. And he's been on all the major TV shows and radio shows and everything. And his book sold millions and that. But it's a good book to give you an idea how it can change your life. But you can still have that experience by, like Natasha can, do readings for you and stuff and give you a lot of information about your life's purpose and some of your past lives, things like that. Or going through hypnotherapy or hypnotherapist can take you back and you can spend some time out of the body. It's interesting. And the client that I had today, a good point was made, because as we're doing the session, it's just like you and I are talking now, Natasha. It's
Hmm.
like your eyes were. It's just like you just had your eyes closed, and we're just talking back and forth. And she's in deep trance, but because of the fact that she's so aware of this happening, just like a medium is. I mean, you're seeing things, but you're totally aware that you're here on doing the show, but you're still seeing those images. And I told her, I said, well, you're becoming like a medium a little bit, to where you can be aware of both things at once,
Hmm.
simultaneously, being there and being here, like it doesn't have to be because when it happens in your sleep, it seems more woo, 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 like, woo, wow, wow, this guide came to me and gave me this message in my sleep, but if you're just in the grocery store and you just get this, your guide tells you something, you go, okay, thanks. I mean, you're just in a sense, you're closer to the other side when you're in total consciousness in both places at the same time. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I've had people, sometimes they're in deep trance, they're before a council up there. The council's loving them and giving them answers to their life's questions and everything. And they'll just wake up and go, this can't be happening. It's too easy. You know, uh,
No, it really is that easy. But I know for me, I've had my
yeah,
lifetime of remembering being born, even my lifetime of understanding this process of being in this world and knowing of the other world,
yeah,
which is basically right here. And a lot of us are just waking up to that moment, and it's amazing to understand. That's why when I look at like slavery, oh, it aches in me that we had to go through that.
yeah,
And it really troubles me that people are treated that way. I can't find the words because the emotions that I feel are not worded,
yeah,
because it's such a wrong. And then you flip the same coin over and say, okay, but then the soul wanted to learn this experience. There was this journey of we're all going through these processes of judgment and learning how to work through judgment and kindness and love and applications and that kind of thing. And it's one of those experiences where it's like, why in the do we have to go through it? But then there's something about going through them,
yeah,
and it's amazing because why did I choose to be a woman at this time where I was born in the 60s, when we were waking up through the judgments and everything, basically trying to wake up, and the application of that through the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And me being who I am, it was, why did I choose to have that this time to do that? Well, I have some images of that. I help a lot of people getting through their stories and getting through their life, but there's that application of my personal journey. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
And same with you, Regan, being older than I am, you had your experiences. So, let's see. I don't want to get too much because Mike is talking here. So
Right.
I'm a senior nurse and I've seen many people die. It's so
Wow.
interesting to speak to you guys. I still don't understand the difference between psychics and mediums.
Okay.
Oh,
You
I
would
can
know.
help you out
Yeah.
with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always wondered that. I always wondered that too.
You can easily find me on
You can
Facebook.
easily find me on Facebook.
Yeah, I struggle with that one a little bit. Okay. Are you saying you were a slave? Yes, actually, I was a slave in a past life, and I understand past lives. I see into my. You chose to be a woman. I choose in my lifetime of my spirit to be more feminine than masculine. Yes, I choose
And
as.
we ask this one of the questions we ask when we have people on the other side in our research. We say, when you incarnate, do you prefer to be a man or a woman? And they'll usually have a preference. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised. Like probably half of my clients that are women, they find themselves men in other lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently had a man, Robert, who found himself on their side, and it surprised him because he said afterwards that he couldn't have made that up because he never thought about himself ever being a woman. But he was
Yeah.
a woman in another lifetime. And when I had him go to an important event in there, he was given birth. So here I have this Robert in deep trance on my table, beginning to have labor pains, and feeling what it's like to have a baby. So I had him go through that pretty quickly. And then, when he came out of it and we were talking about it later, he was going, oh my gosh, what women go through, you know, he just,
Mm-hmm.
got to experience that. So yeah, we experience, it's very common. We experience, sometimes people are gay or they're straight or they're, as we're finding out now in sexual studies, they're starting to identify dozens and dozens and dozens of variances in sexuality, you
Mm-hmm.
know, in other words, we used to think it's just, black or white, straight or gay. And then it was like, oh, now we have bisexual, that's in there a little bit. But now they're finding out like all these other different variants. And a lot of it has to do with the amount of hormones and things that the body has. Like I was reading this last one of the studies from something, and I'm not technical in this thing, but it had to do with the degrees of the male and female hormones and things that we have,
Mm-hmm.
that the mother's able to give, because of that. So, we got to just stop this, look at all the prejudice are starting to, I think we had the curtain closed on it for a long time because we didn't want to have this discussion about
Yes.
our prejudices. And with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, it's just all come to the forefront. The curtain has been pulled back, and we're all seeing just how prejudiced we are,
Oh, yes. Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
We're having to now start saying, "Hey, wow, do I want to make another step in not becoming so prejudiced to the world, or do I want to just stay and pretend that I'm an angel now?" So,
Yeah, it's one of those things. So Veronica said that she was looking forward to seeing the other side under hypnosis.
good
Yeah,
heck,
and you would do good. Veronica and I work together. We've
yeah.
been she's been a client of mine for many years, and we're dear friends now. So it's she would do really good at it because she's really awakened her intuitive
Oh,
gifts.
that would be really, really good.
Yes. So I'm a male, but would love to have this and never leave my bedroom. Oh, I can understand that statement. I can totally understand that. Yes, it's an interesting process with that. My my child who was born male is now female and hasn't gone through all the surgeries and stuff, but the transgender journey has
Yeah.
hit our home personally, and I'm so forever grateful that I'm seeing my child being happier than she's been because of the fact that she's choosing instead of having to
Yeah.
be
Well, don't
in
you
that
find out
moment.
now, since you've been through this, Natasha, you're finding out that the world, they're trying to figure out a way to, I would say the people who are really awakened in a way are trying to find a way for these souls that are in these bodies, and they're trying to find out their true sexuality so they can live their fullest express their love in the fullest way, but we don't know exactly how that is yet. So it's all over the board. And so we have to have just adult conversation, try to figure this out as we go along, and try to just improve.
It's okay. So this is my observation, and I could be wrong, that in my observation that it's sometimes a choice because of family trauma and drama, that it's safer to be gay than it is to love a male because of trauma. And then there's the inner calling of the soul. Like my child, I can see that it almost had a twin life. In other words, the beginning life was masculine, and then she turned into feminine, and it was an evolution that happened early in life.
Yeah.
And uh, it's one of those things that as we go forward, and there's many more scenarios that is that way. That as we're going forward, that it is about honoring those emotions, and we can't we can't take a blood test and say this person's going to be female or masculine, because of the fact that there's so many evolutions through the process of our understanding as we mature in our lives.
Yeah.
And I have an understanding too that there's some souls that were masculine before and now are feminine in this lifetime, didn't come in with a full evolution of knowing that they were supposed to be masculine or feminine in this lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there have this hangover, I'm going to call it, because we all have if you drink too much, you have a hangover from the time before, but it was a lifetime before of who they were. Or
Yeah.
they're the type where they float between dimensions easily, and they float between past lives in this one, and they were the opposite sex, so they get confused in this lifetime. And it's not necessarily everybody is under that boat. I'm naming different scenarios that can happen. And
Right. There's all kinds of scenarios. Yeah.
exactly,
I had a client that,
I'm a male, but okay, so you already said that one. Let's see. Get to the right one. Oh, bless you. I have such nature's and wonderful sense of fun. Yes.
well, now, what at the times when I've had clients that are like trying to figure out their sexuality and everything, I had one client who was lesbian. That's how she identified herself. But later on in life, all of a sudden she started being attracted to men, and it was confusing her. Well, in therapy, what we realized was, see, when she was in high school, she was way overweight, not that attractive, she felt, and she couldn't get a date. I mean,
Hmm.
she couldn't get to the prom and everything. So she'd hung out with the girls in there that were out lesbians, and having sexual needs and drives and stuff. And she had some.
And getting fulfilled. Hmm.
So she thought, I guess I'm a lesbian,
Hmm.
because that's the way it was. Well, later in life, she found out she's attracted to men, but it still was confusing to her. But after some sessions and everything, she started dating, and now she's got the best of both worlds. She's actually lives with a man and a woman, and they're all, whatever, together,
Hmm.
and they're perfectly happy. So it's not just a cut or dried, thing. And that's why parents, I think, that have children that are in that confused state, just give them some time to mature, to grow up, to figure it out. There's no hurry,
Hmm.
but bring them up to where they're not ashamed, or that they don't feel less than or anything, just because they're trying to figure it out and they're a little confused.
Exactly. And that's the thing too about when we're working with a lot of our traumas in our life, because the fact that a lot of our traumas are not necessarily just in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to name my mother, love her, but she's passed now, but observing her, that she had a fear of snakes. Well, that fear of snake, yes, was from a cousin chasing her with a snake a couple of times, when she was younger, and that bothered her. But what I think it was is that she was re-triggered into trauma because of a previous lifetime where she was killed by snakes.
Yeah.
And when we're going through that, and that's where I think a lot of us hold on to our judgments and our grief and our applications, because, it's in our DNA, for one. When you have trauma that happens in families, that it runs from one family to another, to another, to another. That's why we have some of the same things happen from grandparent to child to child to child. It's because it's kind of in their DNA, and then they're learned from that too. So they
Yeah.
hear it, they know it in their soul, they know it in their being because it's in their DNA. And when we're going through the process of that application, that's why sometimes it is harder to let go of the trauma and the pain of some of these things that happen when we know it happened to our grandmother.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that I remind my people around me sometimes that when you're thinking about it, slavery is only one generation away.
I know. And
It's
some of
only
it,
one generation away.
yeah. Some teenagers now, as they're starting to learn all this, they can't believe it, because we're in a society now that it's not as, what do I say, as severe as it was at one time, where it was just obvious, they're the slaves and you're the owners. And I'm surprised how many teenagers stuff learning all this stuff now. They're going, wait a minute, you mean just 50, 60, 70 years ago that
Mhm.
black people had to drink out of separate fountains? And
Yes.
oh my gosh, I mean, like, see that problem when we talked about this one time before, it brought back the memories of me being in Indiana in 1960. I'm 10 years old, and I'm at the roller place where they have a Ferris wheel and stuff and a roller rink. And then there's the drinking fountain outside the roller rink, and it said for coloreds only. And
Mhm.
I lived in a totally white neighborhood, so I'd never met a black person in my life. I didn't even notice if I'd seen him at 10 years old. And so I asked my dad, what's that mean for colored only? And he said, that's where, black people have to drink from. And I remember at 10 years old just going, what? You know?
That doesn't seem right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
prejudice is something that is very much taught. It's a
That's in
very
my
much
lifetime. And I can't believe that now.
yeah.
But
And then
then,
you think back if you like I was when we were in Florida, I was talking with a 90-year-old woman, and she was a kid in the depression, which meant then that, just her parents were knowing about slavery.
yeah, no,
And so that's why it's so hard to get it out of our DNA. That's why it's so hard to get it out of our understanding and our it's almost like can I get it off of me? It's almost like, it's almost like somebody who's raped and they try to shower it off. They
yeah,
can't because it's in them, and it's
yeah,
sad. And it takes some healing, and it takes these moments of talking. We have to bring it out of the gutters. We have to bring it out of underneath the trees. We got to bring it out to where the sunlight can do some healing work on it,
I
which is
know.
about conversations about I'm
Yeah,
sorry
yeah,
that your family went through this. I'm sorry that your soul went through s- generations, sometimes of slavery, because of the way that these people rebirthed into the same family line,
yeah,
over and over again. And it's not easy to, just like for me when I had a past life that I had to do some forgiveness in,
yeah.
or actually a couple of them. And it was part of the process of that understanding of who we are and where we're going.
Yeah, and all we can do, I mean, even just doing the show and just talking about it, it's an increment. It helps. It helps
Hmm.
make us more conscious of our prejudices, and we just want to get it out of our system. And maybe some of it, maybe we'll leave this lifetime and we'll still have some of it on us that we've been tainted some and just can't get it out of us.
Hmm.
But at least we're trying, and we're aware, we're mindful of when we're not being loving to other people, or
Hmm.
uh, when we look, anytime we feel ourselves better than somebody else or that we're superior.
Exactly, exactly. So Mike said, I don't want to revisit the cardiac. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And that's I was unconscious, and yeah, and to do somewhere else energetic transfer, but obviously it wasn't.
Yeah, obviously it wasn't dead, just shut down until they dragged me back.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's the thing is it's kind of like seeing the monster in the closet when we're having dreams. That sometimes it's like it's easier not to open up the door to the closet to see the monster or to learn that experience or to see what was the true message. And as we go forward, many times, like for me being the medium, I look at the bigger picture of it. I don't like if I see somebody in a past life where they were buried, they were decent, they were buried, by Native Americans and trauma, drama, and then ran over by horses and then scalped and all that stuff. I don't go tell them all that. But I
Yeah.
tell them that you had a very big trauma and it dealt with horses and somebody of a different culture. And if it depends on the person, I'll name it. But it's time to let's heal that.
Yeah.
So I give enough information that we don't necessarily go there, but we go there enough to understand. Now that's why you're struggling with that, 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 that,
Yeah.
that,
And
that, that.
that's why some people are afraid to do a past life regression because they're thinking, oh my gosh, what if I was tortured in another lifetime? I don't want to relive that. Well, that doesn't happen. I mean, because of the fact that when you're trained in past life regression, like the Newton Institute teaches, if somebody we get to the death scene and something that starts to happen, we give them a choice. And they're on deep trance. We'll say, look, you have a choice here to make now. You can kind of watch like what's happening from outside that body and just like you're watching it on a screen, or you can actually. I've had a few people wanted to experience it, uh, experience them dying. And so it's their choice, but people don't have to worry about getting re-traumatized. It would be just like seeing it on like a movie screen or something.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so you asked the question, Mike. I did not skip the question about what's the difference between a psychic and a medium,
Oh
but we
yeah, we got to
wanted
get
to
back to that
finish
question.
up with the conversation because that's kind of like going squirrel, and
Yeah,
I wanted to wait until because we're getting down to the end of our show. I still don't understand the difference between a psychic and a medium. Yes, and I understand that. So now that we're at the end of the show, and I want everybody, let's finish up the conversation with Juneteenth first, that I'm asking that whatever we do going forward, the day of the word called freedom, that we can expand that word about how do we enslave ourselves with past prejudice and past beliefs, and how can we free ourselves from a lot of that trauma that we've come into in our lives because of the fact that we've all had some time when we've been a slave. We've all had a time when we've been the person who's enslaved. And if we can heal, and I'm asking for healing on all this, I'm putting a healing bubble around our world because in different countries, they're still struggling with enslaving people. And how we take people from other countries and enslave them even in this country still.
right.
It's pretty sad. And the trafficking that we do for a lot of that underground stuff. And I'm asking for healing on this, that we can bring it to the light so that it can heal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I think the Juneteenth, what we should do is we should celebrate the gains that we've made, but to realize that there's a lot more to do still. You
Yes.
know, in other words, we're happy for some of the gains we've made, but we can't stop here. We have to just keep at it until we can lessen it even more.
Yes. And Mike, I understand that you said I don't remember being a slave. That's okay. You don't have to. I just have a very thin doorway to past lives. And so I see that and witness it. And and so with that if you don't remember being a slave, that's okay. I'm unique in a way. There's others like me that can do that too, but I'm unique in a way of working with past lives. Okay, so this is a good segue into the difference between psychics and mediums.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go talk about mediumship. Mediumship is talking to someone that is either past, deceased, or it could be an angel. So mediumship is talking with spirit. It's the speaking with spirit and getting messages from spirit. So that's basically mediumship. Now, the psychic or intuitive part of this is that a psychic or intuitive has many other doorways. Some people can be just mediums and they'll say, I cannot read the future. I don't want to know about anything in the future. I don't want to do anything. Actually, I think whatchamacallit medium that's on TV, Long Island Medium.
Medium, yeah.
She just claims to be a medium. She may get feelings that things are happening, but she doesn't have an understanding how to interpret them very well, at least from my understanding and my observation. Sorry, dog's barking here. Now, a psychic or an intuitive person, and I call myself more psychic now than intuitive because I'm not just like, I get a feeling about something. I don't know what it is yet, but I gotta, and that's intuitive. We're all intuitive in a way. We all get that intuitive feeling. I should go check. There's something telling me that I should go check to see if I turn off the stove, right? We all have intuitive feelings. And some of us believe them more than others. Some of us are more intuitive about things. Like you, Regan, when we first met, you were intuitive about life. You knew there was a bigger picture out there, but now you're really tapping into your knowings that there is something out there and how to listen to that message. But psychics are very much in the vault. We can tap into a lot of psychics. Every person has a different ability. But for me, my psychic abilities is to be able to talk with everything from fairies to star beings, angels. I communicate on all dimensions. Now, also in my psychic ability, I can see the different dimensions. So kind of like when I was deciding that I didn't want to be my parents and pass away at 56 years old, I worked with myself in this dimension, but then all of a sudden I saw the ripple effect of that dimension or that decision in other dimensions. And I went, holy crap, sorry guys that I made this decision, but in this lifetime, I'm doing this. So with me, I see a lot of different things. I work with Akashic records like that. Like I said, I remember being born. So I remember writing my contract coming into this lifetime. Oh, that's why I don't like anything else besides just very thick vanilla shakes, because I'm not taking smoothies and all this other stuff that is in food. I've been poisoned too many lifetimes for who I've been. And many of us who are, sorry, my battery is almost dying here. I forgot to plug in my computer. Just a second here. And so a lot of us psychics or intuitives work in dealing with other aspects of life. We work in knowing the chakras and the applications of how that our bodies, minds, and spirits all work in one. And when we're going through life and managing our life, that it is interesting in seeing the bigger picture. And mediumship can do that, but a lot of mediums will go to psychics to kind of get that feeling. Well, I've been having this feeling. What does it mean?
Yeah.
And so with us, now for me, I don't necessarily tell you yes or no, something's going to happen. But if you give me, should I go this way or that way? If you give me the name of both, I can get a feeling for the way that things are going to go.
Yeah, like you did for, I mean, even practical things like you helped us, gave us some clues to us finding a vacation property and helping me find a van that I convert so we can go on vacation. I was looking all over the place and you just had this thing says, well, look somewhere down south around Arizona, Nevada, like there. So I went right on.
I saw the I saw the corners of
right where Nevada and Arizona come together, and I found this FedEx van. So it can be practical things too. It doesn't have to be just spiritual stuff.
Exactly. So mediums are junior psychics. It depends on the person. It really depends on the person, and it's one of those things. Watch it, sweetie. So it is part of the process that you like. For me, if I'm sitting in a row of five mediums or psychics, Each one of us might get the same message for you, but yet each one, because of our life experiences, because of who we are personally, who the integrity that we hold,
Right.
the intention we hold, because integrity and intention are two different things, that will each give you a message in a different way.
Yeah.
And it may be the same message, but yet it'll be given in a different way. That's why you're called to one person. If you're like in a fair, a psychic fair, you'll get pulled to one person or another person because of the fact that you're called to their spirit, their soul, to get that message to reach out a little bit more to you.
Yeah. Well, even the people, I really feel that the people that come to me for this life between life sessions are led to me for, I've had some people because they have 250 to choose from. And when they see that, now I'll say, well, look, I could find someone in your area you could see in person instead of us doing this on Zoom because we're long distance. And they'll say, no, I just get this feeling. I saw your picture and I read something and they're intuitively figuring that spirit wants me to help
Mhm.
them, like I'm the best person for what they need. So I just go with that, you know. Uh,
Yeah, I get it. I'm sorry, not trying to, s- just trying to understand. And I get that. And I'm grateful for this question because it is kind of confusing. And it's not necessarily that not a straight line question, but I can tell you that mediumship is attached to psychic because of the fact that I can channel, I can interact with angels, and I only channel angels, actually, and maybe a few fairies once in a while. It depends on our trust value. But I will talk to loved ones from the other side. I will talk with others that are doing it, but they stand right here. And so with that as I'm working with this, and I love doing mediumship. I love doing actually group mediumships. It's very rewarding to me to do that bigger picture of helping a group of people, and yet at the same time I don't just do mediumship, I do life helping in that there's sometimes a message that the universe wants to give them, and I only work with the universe of love. So there's a message that says, hey, can I, with the message that the daughter gave, I can add on and give a message to help others.
yeah. Hmm.
And that's part of that intuitive psychic work.
Yeah. Well, should I
Yes,
tell
it's
people how to get a hold of me since we're over time
thank
here?
you, Mike and Veronica, for
Yeah,
and if you
Mike, it
chat,
was,
if you're still
thanks
here, and
for
whoever
adding.
else is listening, thank you very much for interacting. I
Yeah.
hope this show did help.
Yeah, just know, I mean, in the research and everything we're doing now, I mean, we're, like I said, researchers at the Newton Institute. We're not for any one particular religion or any particular path. That's up to everybody to decide for themselves. We're just doing this research saying that we have this process when we put people in a real deep state of relaxation or trance. They seem to be easily to visit the other side, to get information that they need to help them in this lifetime, like to find out what their mission is. Why did they decide why did they decide to be the person that they are? Why did they just choose their parents? And we find out all the time that we kind of choose the people in our life's play. And so here's a book, Mike, you might find very interesting. It's called Journey of Souls. It's some of our published research from the Newton Institute, sold over 1 million copies already. Well, over a number of years here and now, and it explains this process, and there's a lot of case histories in there, and you might find your life experience amongst some of these similar,
A
you can relate to
likeness.
some of it,
Mhm.
likeness, yeah. And the other one's Destiny of Souls. That just expands upon the other. Since there's 1 million copies sold, you can get them on used books. If you type in used books like Amazon or whatever, you get them for $5 or $6 or something. But it's really, really, really good. Um, and also watch Survive on Netflix. To understand mediums even more, watch Surviving Death on Netflix. And it came out about 8 months ago. It's been watched by millions now. And there's about it's a series of 5-hour long programs on there. And a lot of it gets in depth into mediums. And you'll get to see like people like Natasha, other really good mediums like Natasha working in there, and how powerful that they can be, and how much information people can get from them. people can get a hold of me at visittheafterlife.com. There's a lot of good videos on there. There's a video in there of a young lady going through this process where sometimes sessions mine are usually about 5 or 6 hours. And you're welcome, Mike.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
it
You're
looks like he's got
welcome.
a great family there. So he's lucky
Yes.
that he was able to come back and to spend time and be with those kids who, Mike, you could be looking at your son right now and he could be your elder on the other side or something, you just never know.
Yeah, I know my dad and I we flip around quite a bit on who's
Yeah.
daughter, who's son, who's a parent and who's not, and yeah, that kind of thing.
And if you look at you, like your children probably chose you as their parents because they know that you had what they needed to help develop them spiritually, and vice versa. They're going to help you as much as you help them.
Mhm.
So just take good care of them. Don't watch what you see, especially when they're young now, because little children between when they're born and about 8 or 10 years old, before you reach the age of reason, if your parents tell you something and you look up to your parents, what you tell your kids, they're going to believe is truth. And maybe the truths that we have aren't the truths that they need exactly, or
And
uh,
you think that's the same thing that happened to us.
right, yeah. If because we're not perfect, so here's imperfect people trying to bring up perfect children, and that
Because we
doesn't
got
happen.
told truths at 10 o'clock, at 10 year before 10, that we
Yeah.
believe still as
So
adults.
don't tell them, oh, you're a little brat, or oh, you'll never amount to much. Parents do that kind of thing when they get frustrated with their kids. It goes in there as truth, and they'll be adults thinking that what you said was true. So you
Mhm.
got to be really really careful there. Bring up some good kids. And what about you,
Exactly.
Natasha? How do they get a hold of you?
You can reach me at angelicclarifications.com, and I love to support people through life's journey. I do it without judgment. I have many belief systems, basically all under the umbrella of love. And with that I can interact with many different understandings of why people are that way. So if you're looking for help, I really enjoy bringing light into dark places, because when we look into the shadows of our life, those places that we don't really want to look at, and those things that trouble us a lot about ourselves that we're like going, "Ugh, no, I'm not going to deal with that today." That when we bring those out, those shames and those misunderstandings, and um, I don't really want to be looked at that way, that many a times that when we can work with that in a safe place, I love to support that safe place to enlighten the soul and the mind and the emotions through the process. So you can reach me at angelicclarification.com.
Yeah.
And I am going to be, it's coming down on Thursday. I am having class about feng shui and how it can
Oh, yeah. It's
change
free,
your
right?
world. It's free. And all you have to do is email me at Natasha at angelicclarifications.com. Everything's pretty much the same. Angelic Clarifications, and it's Natasha at, or you can go to my website at
Sign up
www.angelicclarifications.com
for the free thing. Yeah, yeah.
and get a hold of me.
And don't you think, I mean, evolving spiritually has to do with a lot of what we consider just even little things. And that's like how you put your house together,
Hmm.
if you can
The truth is
make
out
your
there.
house
Yes.
so that when you walk in, you just feel, this just feels so good,
Yeah.
instead of it being like this, you know, uh, it can change the whole way you look at things.
And Mike, to speak of truth, we all have our own truths, but the only truth that I go by that is the truth, capital THE, truth is love.
That's what we find out from the other side, right? Love is like when
Is
you,
the only the truth.
like the Dalai Lama said when they asked him, "What's your religion?" and he goes, "Kindness."
Kindness, love,
Yeah, that's it.
kindness, love.
So whatever
So
you are, whatever spiritual path you choose, you can be the love within that religion or something. That's you're
mhm.
right where you're supposed to be.
Exactly, exactly. Blessings to
All right.
everyone, and please come and join me on Wednesdays with Life Clarifications with Natasha. I am here at 4 o'clock Pacific time, all on the same places and stations and channels: Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And on next Monday, Regan, we have not talked about what we're going to talk about next Monday,
We'll
but
have
you
to
can
figure that
always
out.
Yeah, we always I always try to post the night before about what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So blessings to you. Come and join us Mondays and Wednesdays, 4 o'clock Pacific time, on the same stations, Facebook, and Twitter, and YouTube.
Oh yeah, and I forgot it. My site, if you go to visittheafterlife.com, still giving away my latest book. It's about all the research being done on reincarnation. And
Mm.
it's really cool because it goes, you'll read some and then you'll click to go to like a YouTube video that's, something, and then you come back to the book and back and forth. So it's really,
Oh,
really easy read that way.
I
And
like that.
yeah, there's so much going on right now. It's most of us that do this. I mean, we know it's true. I mean,
Mhm.
it's too much overwhelming evidence that that's the case. So
Exactly.
it's free on there. You just go to the back on my website there, the contact page, and just say you'd like a free copy. And then about every couple of weeks, I check it and send them all out. Which reminds me, I've got to do that now because it's been 2 weeks since I checked the free books.
So, could you repeat that? So
Okay.
you go to visit the afterlife
Dot
and
com.
.com, and Regan is giving away one of his free books about
It's about the current all the research being done
on
around the
yeah.
world on
And he's
reincarnation.
got some other books on there too
Oh
that
yeah,
are
actually,
very
Mike, if you want,
tremendous.
tell them, you just say, "Hey, I'm Mike from the show." I have a second book on there, and I call it 3 hours, 33 minutes in heaven, and it's about my experience of the hours that I spent in heaven, and the 12 things that I learned in that 3 hours that changed my life.
Mhm.
And I'd be happy to send you a free ebook of that too.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Blessings to all, and may healing happen, and may this the language of Juneteenth be of freedom of a lot of different avenues that we all are asking for in our lives.
Let's all work on setting everybody free, just no
Exactly.
prejudice, just do the best we can to just
Yes, yes, yes,
celebrate.
yes. And it's not necessarily that we can run amok, but it's that freedom to respect and honor everybody
Yeah,
has individually, and that's a can of worms of another conversation. So
yeah.
blessings to all. Love
All right.
you.
See you next time.